Hey guys, how's it going? Hello. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello, my friends. How are you? I'm the spooky boy. I'm the spooky boy. I'm very spooky. Alright, let's see here. Let's see here. Oh, you remember Star Fox? Nah, you guys are too young. In Star Fox, the original Star Fox, they used to like have these like funny little voices on Super Nintendo. I think even the N64 one. I don't know if the N64. No, that one started getting the voices already, but the old one, um, they sounded different. If I remember correctly, well, it was the frog, Lippy. Here we go. Rabbit, 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 boop, boop, boop. Zoidox is calling me cute today. I'm not recovered. And you never will. Hold on. How's it go? How did he go? Beep, 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 beep. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, beep, 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 beep. I think that was Peppy. And then Falco, I think, was boop, 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 boop. And then it was, yeah. Beep, 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 beep. That was the little frog dude. But I always like boop, 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 boop. Beep, 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 boop, boop, boop. Shit's funny. Much better than the later do a barrel roll. Give him like a country accent or something. And that was Peppy. Help me, Fox! Oh, Hortha's coming down for the 1-2. Boom, boom. Like a combo. Destroyed. Hey, that's not allowed on Twitch. Can't do that, Shadow. Can't say that. Not to ban you. Alright, let's see here. Oh, this album I found that I'm playing right now is really up your alley there, Shadow, for sure. I'll post it again just in case the link didn't show up. That's all you, bud. I have a feeling you're gonna like this little gem. It's really good shit. Heard it like 3 different times. They got another album too that's pretty good called Replicant, I think. Anyway, yeah, it starts pretty slow, but then it just kicks off. It'll have like some cool chill parts, and then it'll have some hard parts, and that's pretty good. Pretty good stuff. It's pretty good. It's pretty good stuff. It's pretty tasty. Pretty tasty in my mouth. Oh, look at that. I got a few people here. What's going on? Coming out of the woodwork. Killing Time itself. Listening through Jake Chudnow's Discog, mostly, for a second time now. It never fails to amaze me how quickly an album can go from mid to absolutely banging a couple of listens through. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying some music there, bud. Music is one of the few things that we ever have left. Let me see here. For our time is short. Okay, looks like we're good. All right, everything's in motion here. So, couple things. So a couple of things. I wanted to start with labels, specifically like mental health stuff. Yeah, I had a really kind of weird encounter at my job. regarding this sort of stuff that I think might be interesting to talk about. So, so what happened was, um, I did, as you guys know, like I do like AI training type work. I can't like talk about deets because that's the way the job is, but that's the kind of stuff I do. And yeah, I had to do like one of the things, and it had to do with ADHD and stuff. And like I was trying to take a more nuanced approach to it because a lot's changed since the diagnosis, even though the DSM still just qualifies as a disorder. But in any case, yeah, so I was like saying, well, this could have been hedged better here. This is kind of because it was referring to ADHD as like an illness and as what's it called, a learning disability and stuff like that. And so I kind of took issue with that. I'm like, well, I mean, not really. And when I was kind of putting that stuff as corrections, I ended up getting like QA'd and getting told like, oh no, I mean, this is what the DSM says, and this is what the ICD says. So then, you know, this is wrong. And so then, yeah, so it just got me thinking. And yeah, it's frustrating, obviously, to encounter that, but it just got me thinking about it some more. Like this sort of idea that not enough things are being delineated like appropriately as to like the context they sort of you're sort of required to take into account when doing this sort of stuff. And I know people like to use like categories as sort of broad generalizations and stuff, but I often wonder like who is that limitation for? Like who is that for? Like, oh, using like a broad category to define some like specific set of oftentimes differentiating symptoms or behaviors. Like there's a lot of stuff like with something like autism. People just say, oh, that person's autistic, but it can range from somebody that's you know nonverbal and requires help with everything to somebody that's just socially awkward, doesn't do social cues very well, has no interest in conventional things, um, is just considered odd to speak to, um, you know, but still very much capable of being self-sufficient in like 90% of things, except for, things that require them to be not autistic. And it's similar with like ADHD and stuff. And so then, it was just kind of like this thing. And I, these more broad categories like, ADHD, autism, you know, schizotypal, whatever. Like, why aren't there subcategories to these things? Who is that for, that they're not being created? Is it because it's too hard for someone to like broaden that out a little bit more and have different words to contextualize variety? I know it kind of happens within like some aspects of it, right? Because they'll go like, oh, autism, and then they'll say level one, level whatever, level. But then I'm just like, what? Why have levels? Just have differing words for different aspects of it, right? Like it's really weird. Oftentimes it feels like some of the symptoms of something like ADHD or autism are not necessarily just specific to that label, but just seem to be concurrent with that label more often than not. You know what I mean? Because they used to say like ADD and then ADHD, right? So there was people that were inattentive ADHD, and then there's hyperactive ADHD, right? And then I'm like, but why is it all being called ADHD? Right? Because I feel like elements of what is being said to be a symptom specific to that isn't necessarily. Like if you were to remove certain symptom aspects of it, there'd be plenty of people that would have a similar kind of predisposition, right? So So it's interesting to me in that sense, right? Like somebody could have sensory issues and not be autistic, but sensory issues are just kind of lumped into being autistic, right? And then on top of that, it gets more complicated, right? Because sensory issues will differ from autistic person to autistic person, right? Sometimes it's more texture, sometimes it's more sound, sometimes it's all of it, sometimes it's scent, olfactory stuff. Like it varies. So we currently have a broad category and then a handful of subset behaviorisms that follow, making it more generally flexible. Yeah, but I feel like, hold on, I think there are subcategories because we understand immediate mess that is nested categorization. That shit is hard enough. It needs to be classified to be defined, but refrains from categorical initial because it's the human brain. Yeah, I know, but that's what I mean. Like, oh, we can't use too many over specifications and things like that. I'm like, and I just think, why not? I mean, if somebody's a specialist in something, fine. We can have the broader categories for like Joe Schmo, I guess. But even within the deeper research, right? You still see this sort of stuff get used and discussed in that way, and I'm like, I feel like that's a little basic, right? I don't see why further differentiation cannot be established, and then on top of that, like trying to determine what is the thing and what is something that generally oftentimes comes with it, but isn't actually the thing. It's just a thing that's what's the word? Is something that correlates in some way, but isn't like exclusive or unique to that. Okay? So being able to differentiate that and remove that from like the wholesale definition, right? So you would have the definition, and then you would say, oh well, and this, these are the exclusive things to this, and these are things that could be co-occurring but aren't necessarily because that neurodivergency. What I probably run into is what I call a niche trait: explicit things that exist but are extremely rare. Do you just make a miscellaneous category? That's an option. Do you individually categorize them? Do you categorize them entirely separately under macro micro behaviorisms, for instance? No, I'm thinking more along the lines of like, okay, this is a neurodivergent person of some kind, whether schizo-spectrum, autist, ADHD, whatever. This is that kind of person, and they have, and that means something, right? That part means something specific, and then you say, and this person also has these behaviorisms or symptoms, right? That aren't necessarily part of the definition up here. And then that's a case by case basis there, right? Individual to individual. But it's just weird because, like, say 30% of people with ADHD have like a certain symptom. They'll just say, oh well, people with ADHD, this is a part of being ADHD or something. Like, and so it's like kind of lumped into the same definition in many ways. And it becomes very much like part of the lexicon to just be like, oh, okay, right. Like it just, and within the specialization, it should be okay to get really pedantic and anal about the specifics. That's fine. That's good. I don't see that as a bad thing. Um, Especially if you're talking about somebody that's supposed to be a specialist, right? Supposed to be dedicating their at least 50% of their life to that thing. So, so I just find it really odd, and I find it really frustrating because, um, I've had conversations in the past with people where, uh, I'll say, "Oh well, I don't know if you can define ADHD as a disorder," and they might say, "Oh well, it's in the name," which is already funny to me because I'm like, "Well, the name's wrong." Um, and then the way disorders are defined, very very much there's like a social context there, and a neuronormative context that's not being like really parsed out there. It's not really being discussed. It's not really being like disseminated or whatever. This is not, and it feels like just kind of a catch-all for stuff when people do that. Like, oh, it's a disorder. It's like, okay, what aspects of it are a disorder? What aspects of it are not a disorder? How do you define disorder? Right? Are you defining the disorder based on your ability to be competent in a world specifically designed for people that are not this way, even though a decent portion of the population are, and they actually possess capabilities in which they are superior in certain regards and have difficulties with other things that they themselves are less interested in. So it's just, to me, classify it explicitly, then categorize it later. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of everything being a table of traits followed by a heat map of behaviorisms. You get weird anomalies like ADHD, autism, having comorbidity. Shit's a mess. Yeah, yeah, it's so weird. Yeah, I've seen like ADHD autism. They'll call it like AD something autism, but it's like, no. Like, why don't we just say, okay, you're an autistic person, right? With certain disabilities or certain specific things that might be considered disorders or maladaptations, or we're talking psychological issues, right? Illnesses or whatever, right? Like we don't have a special word for an autistic person with depression, right? Right. You know, like I was trying to think of a name, but I couldn't come up with like a silly name. Right? We don't have that, right? So if we don't have that, and when you say autistic person, you're not including depression. I wonder how many autistic people are depressed. I would say probably a nice little portion have depression or anxiety, right? Probably anxiety more than anything. And ADHD and autism are isolated, but a lot of traits overlap. Also, it's pretty likely you might just have both. Sorry, I'm having trouble keeping up there. Killing time itself. You posted big old chunks, but it's fine. It's good. It's good you are. But sorry if I don't catch it all. Um, but in any case, yeah, I have some issues with that. And then on top of that, it causes like weird shit psychologically for the people that are getting these diagnoses because they'll start thinking autism itself doesn't exactly align with depression natively by definition either. So now depression is an anomaly in some respects. Oh, okay. But yeah, like I'll hear people that are autistic or have ADHD or have some other like they're bipolar things like that. They have a difference in their brain. Some of it is a cognitive difference that is more of a like a evolutionary outlier in a way, right? That's what I kind of consider a lot of things like autism and ADHD and schizo-spectrum stuff. And then there's people that have conditions that are legitimately disorders in the sense that they're things that those very people, right, do not feel as a part of them, right? It's not running in conjunction with their sense of self or their personality. It's actually something that's entirely intrusive and makes their ability to be self-actualized uh, that much harder or impossible, right? Like if you're having fucking seizures every other day, right? I mean, it's not like having seizures is going to be a part of like your like thing, you're going to be like, "Oh man, I can't I'm really, about that seizure life." It's just certain things are going to really define your perception in a major way like that. And and then there's certain things that basically keep you from being able to accomplish what you want to accomplish, right? But unfortunately, a lot of those barriers aren't even ones that your brain's making for you, right? It's ones that have been created over time, right? It's really interesting to think that there might have been times in which specific neurodivergent people might have had a much easier time. Obviously, they wouldn't even know that there's a term for that, right? But they would go into a field of interest or they would become self-sufficient in some way when that was the thing that was allowed, um, tilling the land or whatever, and they could function just fine living some kind of version and then just hyper focusing on a very specific trade that they find interest or science or writing or whatever if they can accomplish this thing, right? even if they end up hyper focusing within, like, just agriculture, and because that's what they have to, do to survive or be part of, the ownership of land they're under, as a serf or some shit. But point is, like, it's just weird to kind of remove a lot of that stuff and then create a world that's just built around, like, it feels like human psychology's been, like, discovered, right? Because, like, it's really interesting because I feel like a lot of these problems are because so we now have psychology, right? We now have we understand human behavior, right? We understand sociological phenomenons, right? And so then, because we get these understandings, right, these more broad understandings, I would say, like, more commonly, like, the people will have, like, a kind of broad understanding of a certain thing, and then that broad understanding becomes a part of the culture, and then that culture wants more or wants to be catered to based on those broad understandings, which are oftentimes inaccurate. So then in my mind I go, what? Like, so that's what we're structuring things around, labels and stuff. And so then you have a market for that, right? You have an entire market. Some people say capitalism, whatever, but you have an entire market for reinforcing common understanding of things, right? And so then your state, your politicians are going to keep reinforcing it because that's how they get the votes. Your state is going to keep reinforcing it because that's how, and institutions associated, that's how they get their funding. Your entertainment is going to keep being produced in a similar vein because that's what keeps that chugging along and make it profitable. Your products, your even your technology, your medical technology as well, your academics, all of it, right? And so that's why, like, when I say, oh, it's difficult to be neurodivergent in neuronormative society, I'm not really blaming the average person. Oh, they're, like, oppressing me. No, it's fucking absurd. It's not. There's no reason for them to have learned anything outside of what available labels have become part of the lexicon. Why would they need nuance? There's nothing advantageous about having it, right? There's no motivation to. And especially is the case when all those things that aren't immediately, right, without enough nuance as far as one's ability to, like, really pick out very specific things about existence and human civilization in everyday life. You have all these big labels. Yeah, you're never going to see the benefit, right? Because it requires long-term thinking, which is oftentimes missing. But the benefit of, say, nurturing people with ADHD and autism and schizo-spectrum stuff, and not just attempting to go through a therapeutic process of, like, oh, here we're going to help you mitigate the consequences of your disorder, right? Which oftentimes are consequences only because of the environment you're in. And that's what's in the current time and in the way that, so basically, like, that's what's amusing, right? It's kind of a weird cognitive majority rules that's also been kind of cemented over time because of profiteering, things like that. It's just so wild to me. Like, that I was I think I have said this before, but, like, to me, as somebody that's neurodivergent, it's just seems insane to me, right? To place more value in things like power and wealth than human, like, humanistic practical solutions to major confusion and major problems and suffering on the planet, regarding our understanding of the human mind. Is That's not something we put a lot of money into, right? We don't put a lot of effort or just time and resources into. we put it into these other things that just seem to me broadly useless without fixing some of these core issues. Like I don't. What's the point in my mind? What's the point of us, colonizing planets if all we're gonna do is keep spreading the same problems onto other planets? What purpose does that serve? Right? And so I find that just like very discouraging, personally. I don't see the point. I don't see the point of I don't see the point of human progress if we're not even tackling the worst problems within the medical and psychological field, and the worst, like, things that keep getting perpetuated and continue to grow, and it's just like a lot of fucking weird shit, like our inability to, like, kind of combine a lot of Eastern understanding of medicine with Western ideas, and then try to construct new things out of those. There's doctors and there's medical professionals that attempt to do that in their own practices and their own work, but it's just not. It's just so goddamn ingrained and built in, and then it feeds into people that go into these fields that have intellectual arrogance. Right? They have, like, they're high in arrogance and low in curiosity. And so to me that's just like, what? Like, it's so crazy to me. Like, I think often to myself, I go, like, if I had, like, some crazy 150 IQ, like, why would I waste my time reinforcing these, like, very limited, narrow things? Oh, wait, I know why. If I'm somebody that's just motivated by, self-aggrandizement, status, power, being loved by many, things of that nature, making my family as comfortable as possible, as making my legacy, that is it, like, this kind of individualistic kind of thinking that gets toxic to a certain point, but it just it's very easily a part of human nature that should be tempered, but is instead just head on what's the word? Can't I put well, I'll just say put on a pedestal. And it's not always a good thing. It really isn't. And it's just really funny because that's coming from someone that's, like, is very, very much in tune with their sense of autonomy, right? And I can still see these sort of things. Hi, Rook. How's it going? But anyway, that's enough. I think I went off the rails like I always do, but I think you might get my point. And I don't know how many of you guys feel that way about, like, I mean, I know it went off with the labels and then turned to this, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on the broad label categorization and some of the issues of things like the DSM and ICD when it comes to this stuff. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, and I'd also like to hear your thoughts on the more meta thing I was talking about, right? Like how basically science, technology, and a variety of things are being kind of put into narrower boxes, and we think we can move on from things that we feel are established and known, because we're looking for the next big thing, the next novelty, right? And we're not really doing any retrospectives on our own thinking as a civilization, which is pretty pathetic, honestly. Like we need more, we need human civilization to have more introspection. Like as a species, we need to introspect more, and we don't introspect enough as a species. It's pretty awful. But anyway, that's just my schizo rambles. So, or what have you. Let me go ahead and open it up to anybody that's here if they want to jump on and Let me see here. I don't think anybody's on at the moment, but it's okay. Somebody might get on. What is that? Why is it doing that? It's not showing what I want it to. Yeah, that's what I want. Show the thing, you stupid thing. Oh, that's probably why. No, it's there. Oh man, I don't know. I can never figure out why these things act as stupid as they do sometimes. That's my Twitch. We don't need that. We need that. There you go. I just have to reset it every time. Really dumb. So if anybody wants to jump in, talk, have a convo, debate me, bruh, or whatever, you're more than welcome to. Or if anybody in chat has something interesting to say pertaining to all this, that would also be entertaining to me. Here, I'm gonna pick another album because then it ends up automatically going to like a different one, and then YouTube sends me notifications about how you've been a bad boy. You played the bad songs. You played the songs that they wanted to make the big monies. We don't have to talk about that, by the way. If you want to bring something else up, if anybody else wants to jump in and bring something else up that's been on their mind, they're more than welcome to as well. I don't give a shit, honestly. It's Tuesday. I have energy. I can rambles. I'm a rambling man. My channel isn't monetized, so I just keep using copyrighted music. Oh, okay. Yeah, I should just, I don't know. I was thinking about that. I think I'm gonna like just, for on the YouTube side of things, I'm just gonna just completely demonetize. I don't even know why I have my YouTube monetized anymore. I think I just been forgetting to take it off. I gotta take off the monetization on YouTube. It's fucking terrible. I don't give a fuck about the cents. I'm just trying to get to $100 because it's so stupid. Like, I have $50 in my Google AdSense account that I guess it's just been collecting over the last year or so, and they don't let me cash out until I hit $100. Stupid. So I don't know what I'm at right now, but little by little, I just wanted to get to that $100 mark, let it cash out, and then I'm planning to shut down all the monetization on YouTube. Yeah, because I don't see the point of having my YouTube channel monetized. I don't get enough traction. I don't get enough views. I don't make money off ads. And I told you guys before, don't super chat me. I mean, unless it's like a few bucks here and there, just so but once I get to 100, I'm demonetizing this thing. But I can't cash out that $50, and I can use that $50. It's stupid. But you get my point there. It's fucking dumb. Hey, Ramon. So yeah, I just want to get that done, and then once I can cash out the YouTube money, then I'm gonna stop monetizing. I'll keep the monetization going on Twitch because that actually makes a couple of bucks because of the subscriptions. Though everyone stopped subscribing. There's like a bunch of people that were subscribed via because Prime gives you a free subscription every month. But because I started streaming here, I think a lot of the people that were watching me on Twitch started watching me here instead. So I don't know. I think I get a little more viewership by doing the double. But I don't know if it was like... And it is easier because I just... Well, no, it's not that. It's not much easier. So I don't know. I have no idea how this is playing out, honestly. Any money I make on it, for the most part, mostly comes from Patreon. And from just really cool people that occasionally throw $5 or $10 at my PayPal account, shit like that. That helps. That helps me like keep the lights on certain departments. But I'm definitely not making mad money of any kind during doing this. So a couple of interesting pieces of news, right? I'm still trying to eventually collect enough money to get that MPO of mine to be tax exempt, so I could finally start going, oh look, there's a tax exempt nonprofit. Please donate, person with money that wants to write it off in their taxes or whatever, and doesn't want, the government to take a big chunk of the money you're giving me. To sort of talk about this or do that. So, and even my like over the course, because I've had the NPO open, technically I have the name for like the last year, and I'm kind of glad I hadn't like really fully like gotten everything I needed to really get it going, because it's my definition and my understanding and my beliefs about what I want it to be have kind of evolved. They've kind of changed to a certain degree, like what direction I wanted to like go in, and it's like a weird sort of aspect of where do we start first, practicality or academics or academia? Do we need to start influencing academia so that academia can then influence studies, which then influence credibility, which then has social currency, which can then be used to have an effect on institutions, and then when institutions play ball, then that has an effect on businesses, and then so on and so forth, like trying to make it part of the zeitgeist of the common man in the modern age, right? And things like that is what I'm interested in. I don't see anything I do as, even with the help of others, as being like, no, I want to inspire some people to do similar. I mean, no one's gonna advocate for the neurodivergent except for themselves. There's just no way. There's no profit in it. We have to show them there's a profit. It's fucking depressing, but we have to kind of show, oh look, we're profitable to nurture, which is it's gross, but I mean that's the existence, the hell we've built for ourselves. Anyway, um, yeah, just a little thought popped into my head about like how people are constantly, neurotypicals they can't figure out how to monetize it. I mean, some degree social media. Well, I mean, neurotypical businesses will monetize it. Neurotypical people just need it to be useful to their lives and their existence. And it has to be useful within like the interpersonal social world, the conventional sort of interpersonal social world, and the dynamics that are involved in that. Everything we know about sociology and psychology regarding kind of the average person, the non-outlier. Like it has to like fit into categories that would motivate that larger portion of the human population, the vast majority, right? And since right now human beings are oftentimes affected the most by things like trending information, celebrity status, corpo jargon, media, and things like that, the only way to have any kind of significant change is to basically get inside of those things in some way or another. Um, that's why I think, like, okay, I'd like some thoughts on this, right? Because this is kind of like what I was thinking about a little bit more too. That's why I think talking about the schizoid as a disenfranchised, depressed, traumatized, neurodivergent person by the trappings of neuronormative society, to sort of couch it, I guess, like that, is far more it'll garner far more sympathy, I guess, which yucky, I know. And it'll also tie itself into certain changes that are already kind of occurring regarding things like neurodivergency over time. If things do get better over the next decade or so, my hope is that eventually something like even ADHD will stop being qualified as a disorder, and then they're gonna have a different name for the portions of it that are problematic to that person's life, and not because of societal expectation, uh, but because it legitimately fucks with the person's ability to live their life in a way that they're happy with, right? You know, neurodivergent people shouldn't have to mask all the time. That's just something that shouldn't be happening. Um, and I think there's still too much out there reinforcing the need to. Um, I think in many ways you would have a decrease in schizoids adaptations if something like that would occur over time. You would still have schizos and you would still have autists, but you wouldn't have as many schizoids. And I hope I'm making sense here. It doesn't mean you would all become like fucking extroverts, but you would become maybe what you were meant, or not meant, because that sounds weird. Maybe what you could have been had some of these changes occurred in previous decades. Maybe you would have just been a highly introverted, schizo or autist, and it would have just been like, but you wouldn't be dealing with as much of the anxiety, depression, anhedonia, disconnect from your sense of self, ego fragility, and all that kind of shit that the literature covers. And you would still be you. You would just be a you that's instead of being isolated, you would just be selective and more precise about what friendships you create for yourself. Yeah, exactly. Killing time. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So like, that's kind of what I think, because that's kind of what I'm starting to feel grow in myself, and I've seen grow in other schizoids that have been really kind of interacting more than they ever did in their life before, finding solace and relatability and connection on the server. By the way, Zoid Voids on Discord. There is application process for the schizoid portions of the server. Please check it out if you're interested. Um, but there's a lot of growing pains for sure. But you're starting to see the cracks, right, of who they are underneath the trauma that caused us to bury ourselves away from the world and other people. Overcoming that requires an environment in which a neurodivergent person can actively be themselves around a few select others that don't make them feel alienated by merely existing. They don't have to be liked per se, right? But it's a little different. I think part of the schizoid pain is it's not a rejection of being liked. It's a rejection of being remotely understood, so that they don't feel that level of alienation that leads to a propensity to isolate. I think that's what needs to be fixed. That's the problem. But since labels oftentimes don't differentiate this stuff, like even if you look at everything, I still have to put out that third Axtar video, but if you look at even something like Axtars, if you look at even stuff that are coming from really good people like Eleanor Greenberg, there's still this sort of there's this kind of lumping up of like very complicated, very complex sometimes contradictory, uh, both neurological and psychological, both cognitive and emotional, or whatever, however you want to separate that, aspects are just kind of being lumped into schizoid, right? And it's just, and the same thing's happening with BPD, the same thing's happening with schizotypal, the same thing's happening with paranoid, same thing's happening with a variety of these things, like narcissism, whatever. But I think what makes the schizoid unique from all, or well, cluster A more specifically, if you want to talk schizoids and schizotypals, because we have, those are kind of our like cousins, right? In all honesty, the cousin of the schizoid, the extra, not the extroverted, but like the more vocal cousin of the schizoid is the schizotypal, I feel. Um, but point is that a lot of the people in cluster A, there is a significant amount of neurodivergence when it comes to how they experience reality in life. Like there's just so much there. Like when you look at other personality disorder clusters, right? What you're oftentimes going to find is a propensity toward very kind of conventional sort of blown out of proportion insecurities, right? When you look at what motivates it, the symptoms, the behaviors, right? Even when you're talking about, say, and that's why an avoidant is so different than a schizoid, right? And what makes them so different is the reason they isolate. And when you look at someone like a schizoid, you know, words like autistic thinking and idiosyncratic thinking keep coming up, right? It's not just, oh, I don't like people and I stay away. No, it's, you have very complicated, very 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 complex reasons for why you stay away from people that you could explain and have explained in your own mind, and have rationalizations that are somewhat sound. They're sound, at least, especially in your mind. They're not just some irrational fear. It's something that's been well thought out in your mind why you isolate. um And sometimes that leads to misanthropy, and sometimes that leads to self-loathing, but nonetheless, it leads to one of these. Interacting with people is very complex, draining, and overwhelming. Plus, I like doing shit on my own. Yeah. Yeah, I bet you can tell me, you can write me an essay about why you like doing shit on your own, why it's exhausting, what about the complexity is unrewarding, right? It's not because you're afraid people are going to not like you, right? That's my point. That's why when a neurodivergent person isolates because the world feels so different, that is how a schizoid should be defined. There is something neurologically different occurring. And it's not just, oh, it's unique. Its own broad category of like, oh, there should be ADHD and schizoid and autism. No. It's a consequence of sometimes those very labels existing, and it's a consequence of, depending on the severity of a more societal problem when it comes to how neurodivergence is handled medically and socially. I mean, we're getting there, right? But in a lot of other countries, someone like myself would have already been ostracized into suicide, or killed, or made into an example, socially or otherwise. Sacrificial lamb, perhaps, of some kind. Right? In many countries, that's the fate of a neurodivergent person. Yeah. It's interesting. But, so I am privileged to be able to sit here and talk about this and not worry about that whatsoever. You know, having my local police or having, you know, some local religious group or something breaking down my door because I said the bad things. So I feel like as neurodivergent people that have that ability, I feel, and I can't speak for anyone, but I feel an obligation to advocate. I feel an obligation. I don't like obligation. I have a passion, because it's not really an obligation. I have a passion. I see it as like why not? That's absurd to me, to not do something. That seems utterly absurd. This can't go on. And right now is a very interesting time in which we can begin to, because of the internet, because of everything that's the amount of things that are developing, the overwhelming rate, and because these things basically allow people that are neurodivergent to find niche job positions and I guess tool-like uses, right? Sadly, this is the time to show our worth, even if the way we prove it is in a way that we don't personally decide what worth is. Hold on, can you close the door, please? But sorry, just had the door open back there. But in any case, yeah, I think that's kind of what my passion is. That's what I'm trying to do, and I'm getting a little more and more sort of narrow about, not narrow, but you know what I mean, like more guided. The missile knows where it's going. The missile knows where it was and where it will be. You know, that kind of thing. And yeah, that's where I'm at right now. This stuff. And I have to figure out a way to make this argument and get the right people to listen. But to do that, I need money. I mean, think about like all the stuff I just said in the last, how long have I been streaming right now? Well, let's just say the last, has it been at least an hour and change? I don't know. 40 minutes. Let's just say the last 30 minutes. You know, or even better, the last like 15 minutes where I was talking about this stuff more specifically. Like, imagine hearing those words like on, I don't know, some like stupid big podcast or something. Like, imagine having that conversation with some big silly man like Joe Rogan. Like, that's what I think about. I just go like, that's all it would take. Like, to get some balls rolling is, oh, talk to some big, just some big dumb high status person. No, I mean, I'm not dumb, but like, you know, the whole concept for me is dumb. Like, you know, the fact that they got a lot of eyes watching them, that makes them better. That makes them more important because the collective neuronormative humans have decided this is what is good. This is what feeds the dopamines. But you get my point. Like, it's what it requires. It requires me to talk to people of higher status. It's sickening. It's sickening that the only way to, I hate Rogan, but that would be a lot of, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, I don't care. I'll talk to fucking anybody as long as they have like, I've joked about this before, but I have to find a way to be a better mental health clout chaser. Like, I don't want to be, but just for the sake of trying to get some advocacy done when it comes to this. The schizoid issue is a neurodivergent issue. That's the thing. If you figure this out, that's a domino effect. And I feel like I usually hedge, right? I usually say I'm just I don't know what I'm talking about. I need the professionals to look at this. It's not until they look at it that I can. Yeah, but like, even though I believe that, that's what I truly believe. I believe in the scientific process. But I feel like I have to be some weird incendiary sort of dumb person that says, this is what it is, and they're not listening, and, you know, and so then I'll piss off, like, I don't know, psychologists and neurologists or something, and I have to, like, tell them, don't listen to them, they don't know what they're talking about, they're just trying to, you know, destroy your sense of self, you know, just get really incendiary, like that's not the kind of person I am. But maybe I can inspire somebody to be so that it could help. No, I know, I get that killing time. Yeah, I get that. But what my point is being that incendiary is like what gets you views and gets you talked, what gets you, you know, people talking about you, what then gets, you know, people to want to debate you. But if you're just like a reasonable person that has reasonable arguments and has very nuanced takes in which you want to discuss the, you know, the complexity of it and the difficulties and the pragmatism, how it should be approached. Like, nobody's tuning in. That's just I'm tuning in. I tune into that. Angst master plan is to use angst to create angst. Hell yeah. No, I need people to be angry. Yes. I need neurodivergent people to be angry. But not like but like that's what's so crazy. I feel like I need neurodivergent people to be angry, but when I think about angry neurodivergent people, I don't think about the way neurotypical behave when they're angry. Because they're not motivated by the same things. You know what I mean? How angry without feel? I know! So we gotta fix the feel first, then we can get angry. Right? So we gotta be able to tap into our emotions, people, so that we can get angry and then advocate for ourselves. And stop getting fucking trounced on. Like, it's gnarly. Like, right now, the neurodivergent option is accept your fate and do the best you can with the life you have and don't let your labels define you. It's like, well, I didn't fucking make them, and I am being defined by them, but I'm not doing the defining. The society, most society is defining those labels for me. And so I actively avoid labels, but yeah, but that's a problem too, killing time, right? Because then you just look like a going against the grain for the sake of going against the grain. I like being unknown, yeah, but being unknown, sadly, I mean, I get why you like being unknown. Trust me, I think I would definitely prefer to be unknown if I could just live life in the way that I want to live it, and saw the world as a place that I want to inhabit. But until, because then I would just be like, oh, cool, now I could just live my life and be left alone. Neato burrito. What I do is literally quite more important to me. Okay, well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's you are apparently not the kind of person I'm trying to get angry. Living decades with emptiness and then feeling something was the most jarring thing. Yeah, it's rough. But then that's why you have support systems. That's why you have other people that are feeling those same fucking crazy, scary feelings. Dirty, gross, dirty feelings. Right? Like, because then you have somebody else to go, hey, this is dirty, gross, scary feelings. I don't like this. I think people focus too much on person rather than who they are and what they stand for and what they want to be done. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, people can get angry about that. Get angry on that side of things. You want stuff to be done. You gotta get upset. You gotta get perturbed. You have to be slightly miffed. You have to be a little miffed. Because ain't shit getting done. That's why I don't exist. Well, that's fine. Forces people to consider something else. Yeah, I feel like you existing forces people to consider something else as well. In many ways. Because we're not being considered. So if we're not being considered, though that might be cozy, it's still feeding into the same goddamn machine that will churn out and destroy most neurodivergent people over the course of their lifetime. The reason that autistic and ADHD people have a propensity to have other comorbidities and also have a higher likelihood of things like, you know, doing a backflip off your local overpass. The reason for that isn't because they're autistic. It isn't because they're neurodivergent. They don't opt out of life because they're neurodivergent. That's what I think about all the time. Like, oh, you have research about the likelihood of anxiety amongst autistic people and a higher likelihood of like various types of suicune. And yeah, it's not because of their divergence that they're doing this. And that's a problem that needs to be fixed. And I don't think it's just a problem. It's like, oh, it's my people, let my people go. But it's more like, yeah, you need to let these people go because then that's actually going to perpetuate less suffering in general because of the types of contributions that these people can make to broader active society. If they're motivated to. But as of right now, all they're motivated to do is isolate, backflip, or be assimilated. Like those are your options right now. You know, accept your fate and be assimilated, or you know, it's just or just cope. Cope is like the best possible like option. Like. And it shouldn't be. That's absurd. That's sick. That should not be. There's too many of us that should be the go-to. You know, like if an autistic person, like let's just say level 1 or an ADHD person's having a lot of trouble, if they go to their psychologist and say, "Doctor, this world doesn't make sense to me. It's all topsy-turvy. And they keep doing all this stuff that don't make no sense. Why do they keep doing the things? Why do they do all the bad things?" And then, and the doctor's going to be like, "Oh, well, unfortunately, that's just how people tend to be, and that's just the way the world works, and you just have to think about yourself, and you just got to figure out a way to manage that. You know, you can't really put all your thoughts and ruminate on these things." And meanwhile, you look around you and you're like, the world has lost its mind. And you're being told to like, it's okay. It's okay. Everything's going to be all right as long as you're all right. And then in my head, I'm like, but me being all right doesn't make things all right. I won't be all right with everything not all right as it stands. How can I be all right when the things are all wrong? That's what goes through my head. And if you say that, their answer is like, well, you know what? Let's just go ahead and see what we can do with your medication. Let's see we'll see what we can do with your medication. Let's see how can we CBT or DBT our way out of this one, huh? It's funny. Like they can't say, "Oh, just change your environment." Just, you know, don't just make your own reality and don't cater to the your need to you know, survive. Just, you know, just let's find some medication. Let's put you on disability, and just go ahead and live very, very mild mannered, very um isolated, very meek life, going through the motions until, you know, you die with all those regrets on your deathbed at the age of 55. No, not good enough. No, I say no. No, bueno, no, señor. Yo no quiero eso. No quiero vivir esa vida. Por favor, quiero que me maten en vez de vivir esa vida. Mejor me ponen un pinche balazo en la cabeza que vivir esa pinche vida. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. Máteme ahorita, máteme ahorita. Yeah, así quiere que vives. Ridiculous. Kill me now. If that's how you want me to live. End it now. Because I refuse. I refuse. And the only way that little pipe dream is going to come true is by, well, talking to the right people, getting the right gears moving, and sadly, eventually, hopefully, getting an NPO, finding the right, you know, right millionaire that has a schizo-spectrum son or daughter, or a neurodivergent son or daughter that understands where I'm coming from, and hopefully they can bankroll me, because God knows the neurodivergent community can't bankroll me, because we're all fucking broke or living like, you know, mediocre lives, because we're not living mediocre lives out of a decision we made. Backflip off your local overpass. Yeah. Startled out of my reverie by Spanish. Oh yeah, sí, hablo español. Yo soy latino, as they say. Costarricense. Entonces no tengo acento mexicano, es como centroamericano. The difference between more central, well, I mean, in my case, like Costa Rican Spanish, like kind of accent or whatever, it's a little, like, there's a lot less rolling of the R's. And, yeah. Yeah, but yeah, so I get even amongst, because my wife's Mexican, even amongst them, like when I was first dating her, they would like kind of like trip out at the way my Spanish sounded, because it's not like, you know, it's not as like super different as, say, somebody that's Salvadorian, and it's, or Cuban, but it is different, and but it's a little bit more subtle, and the words, some of the words are different too that I grew up on. And just like a word like tree, which is like arbol, you know, there's like a roll of an R most of the time. It's just arbol. It's like, it's just quick. It's a quick R. Maybe it has a R, but it doesn't have a R, you know, R. That's not there. For a lot of central, well, at least a lot of the Costa Rican people I've spoken to, they have a little bit different. Yeah, it's pretty interesting stuff. Yeah, I would say. It's kind of like if you watch a Spanish film, like from Spain, right? You're gonna hear that. What do they call it, Castellano or whatever? It's gonna sound very different, right? With the vosotros and all that, but in very differing words. It's kind of similar to the probably significant, like the differences you would see between like the Portuguese from Brazil and the Portuguese from Portugal, right? It's kind of like a fucking night and day. I'm not sure if they could even fully comprehend each other, because it's not the same Portuguese, at least not that I'm to understand. It's like a very, very, very different, almost entirely different language in many ways. One way of speaking or dialect or language thing I always found really interesting was Creole. Creole's really cool stuff. Like those mishmash languages are really interesting too. Like the Canadian French type stuff is like really interesting. It's like it's not just French, right? It's quite different in many ways. I find that very interesting. Anyway, that is kind of amusing now that I think about it, because like there's certain languages that have like crossed over because of, you know, colonization, all that kind of shit, and they're like so different that they would have trouble just having like a complicated conversation or more complex conversation on topic. But when it comes to English, it's remained pretty rigid. Like an American could talk to a Brit like no problem. There might be some difficulties on certain words, but the other person could easily define those new words to each other without any kind of problem. There's not the language is not so different or hasn't changed over time or evolved so differently that there would be any kind of major communication barrier. More fascinating still is like a lot of Asian countries to have like dialects that are so different that they would actually have trouble understanding each other, but they're in the same nation. That's fascinating. That's fascinating to me. Anyway, I guess nobody. What is this? What does this do? Delay ads. Oh, cool! I can just stop the ads, slow them down. It has a button to delay ads and insert on YouTube. It's amusing. But anyway, guys, if you want to avoid ads, well, just use an ad blocker, really, right? But if you don't like for using ad blockers, just subscribe to me on Twitch, because and get, if you have Amazon Prime, remember you can just like get a free Twitch like sub and just throw it my way. That's like $2 a month that I'll otherwise not get, and won't cost you anything extra than if you're already paying for Amazon Prime anyway. So I'd really appreciate it if you guys can toss that $2 my way. I think honestly I don't have anyone else jumping on, and English is a colonizing language, not the colonized. That's not true, because Portuguese was a colonizing language. For sure. And Spanish as well. Absolutely colonizing languages. But... Oh, but I can see... No, I can see what you mean. Oh, yeah, you know what? That makes sense. I take it back. You're right in many regards. I'm stupid. Yeah, because the major difference was... Yeah, I see what you're saying now. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense now. Yeah, because... They were colonizing languages that got transformed into colonized languages, yeah. Meanwhile, English was never a colonizing language in the country in which they are used. And so there didn't need to be an integration of the new language into the culture that already existed. Yeah, because it is the culture. And yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, that part's interesting. Very slangy. Sure. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm done. I mean, I don't really have much else to say about this particular topic. And if you guys like the work I do and you have a few bucks, please subscribe to me on Patreon. Or if you're already on Patreon and you want to up that contribution, I appreciate it. I'll be your schizoid guru, like some fucking cult guru person or whatever it takes. I don't care. You guys want to like meditate or some bullshit, talk about how like we're one, some crap like that. Everyone's leaving when I say that. I don't blame you. But seriously, if you can help there. And by the way, if you're on the server, we need boosts so that we can keep our little signature link and our high quality streaming stuff. So I think if you've never boosted the server, I'd appreciate it if we can go and boost that. Stream over, why wouldn't we leave? Oh yeah, I know, but it's not like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, nobody wants to stick around for the part where the person shills their ever incessant need for money because of the world we inhabit. I fucking hate money, but I goddamn need it. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I will be in the usual section on the server if you want to hang out after. I will probably. It's early enough to where I'm probably gonna pop on some movies, maybe talk a little bit, whatever you guys want to do. I'll be there. I'll be in the Angst Likes Awful Media channel. Please join me, seriously. Like, anybody can join. There's no, like, click there. There's no specific people that join. Anybody can join, like, and just hang out. And you don't have to talk. You can just hang out. And if I play something or some people are talking, you can listen. If I'm just watching a movie or playing some weird video game, you can hang out and watch it. No expectations to talk. And we're very, very much used to chat being used to communicate. So if you're like total fly on the wall but want to just chat, we are very used to interacting with the people in chat and then people with VC. That's like very commonplace on my server. So like we actually look at the chat because everyone's like not really interested in talking. All right, in that case, thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you on Thursday. Remember, Thursday is Head Empty Thursdays. And Head Empty Thursdays is when you guys bring me something to talk about. Tuesdays is when I have like a topic that's rattling around in my head. It can vary significantly. Thursdays is when I hope you guys can bring me some shit. Whether you jump on the VC and you're people that just talk in general with me, or you can bring stuff to chat, or DM me something. I don't know, whatever. I don't know. And then Saturdays is Schizoid Saturdays. That's when you can submit shit to the Dear Angst channel, and then you answer the question of the week, and that's specifically for schizoids on the server. And you answer the question of the week anonymously, because whatever you post in there in the Dear Angst channel gets erased and goes into my inbox, and no one else can see it. No, not my mods, not my devs, nobody, just me. And so then, because I'm the only one with admin privileges, so. But in any case, yeah, all that stuff. All right, I'll figure more stuff out, guys. I gotta figure stuff out. I'll see where I can take all this from here. There's always real life shit I'm dealing with. I wish this was my real life shit. It's more interesting. As far as like career wise and stuff. Alright. Later, guys.